Hey there, hope you're doing well. So I want to talk about having an eternal perspective of things or adopting an eternity mindset rather than having a mindset that is limited and restricted by time. And I want to say that God exists outside time. He's not limited to time. He lives and exists outside time. And the promises of God also exist outside time, outside the construct of time. And so when we are limited, in our limited understanding of time, when we are limited and limit God to time, we may not be able to experience the abundance and the full blessings of God because we have a limited understanding of how God works, for lack of a better word. You see, when we have been socially or culturally conditioned to believe that there's an appropriate time for everything to happen. There's a right time the right time frame to make especially major decisions or acquisitions, the right time to get married. This is the right time to have children. This is the right time to buy a house, to buy a car. And because of our limited understanding of time, it creates a lot of unnecessary pressure on us, especially when the promises of God don't manifest at the time that we want them to manifest. However, when we have an eternal perspective of things, we are not moved when things are not happening at the appropriate time, because we know that God works outside time. Case in point is Abraham. The Bible says that God promised Abraham a son, and the promise was fulfilled. Abraham received the promise immediately when God told him, I'm going to give you your son. But the promise manifested 25 years later, when Abraham is 100 years old. When his body, Romans 4 says that his body was as good as dead, impotent, and Sarah's womb was as good as dead. So his soldiers are probably not matching, if you know what I mean. And God, brings this promise into fulfillment 25 years later. So if Abraham did not have an eternal perspective of things, if he was limiting God, putting God in the box of time, he probably would not have experienced the fulfillment of the promise. He would have given up. 25 years is a very, very long time to wait for a son or to wait for any promise. But because Abraham knew God, he judged God faithful. That he was fully, Romans 4 says, he was fully persuaded that God was able to bring this promise to pass. I'm paraphrasing. Please read Romans chapter 4. And the Bible says that he did not consider his body, which was good, as dead. He judged God faithful. And so Abraham understood that God's promise was not limited to time. I hope I'm making sense. And what I'm trying to say is that when we are governed, you see, God created Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and they were living in the glory of God. They were not governed by time. They were living literally in the glory and the presence of God, having dominion and rulership of everything, including time. And time was created by God for man, not man for time. And so when Adam and Eve fell, when they fell from glory after they disobeyed God, they fell into time. Yeah, they fell into the construct of time, limited by time, restricted by time, And so, but that wasn't God's original intention. God's original intention, or the intent of his heart, was for us to govern time. And I know that we we love to quote Psalms chapter 90. The Bible says in Psalms 90, Moses was lamenting and was saying, our years, they were in the wilderness. Our years are 70 to 80 years, That's the lifespan, the human lifespan. And science, is the statistics show that. However, that wasn't a promise. Psalms 90 is not a promise of God that your years are going to be set between 70 to 80. You see, these are people who, these are the children of Israel who had left Egypt. And because of their disobedience of complaining and murmuring, God promised that they were going to die in the wilderness. So I think everyone above the age of 40 and above was going to die in the desert. And so they all died between that age of 70 and 80, before the new generation crossed over into the promised land. But that wasn't a promise, from God. That was what they were experiencing because of their disobedience. However, the promise of God is a long and fulfilled life. And so when we are restricted by time, it will be very difficult to experience the manifestation of the abundance and the promises of God, because we think these things should happen at a particular time, and that is not how God works. And when we are living and operating from that point of of limitation, of scarcity, because the whole pressure is and the whole limitation is driven by fear and scarcity. When we operate from there, then Satan, it's very easy for the devil to defeat us, because Satan knows that the Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. So what he does, he creates opportunities to cause delay, so that you give up on the promises of God. He'll create opportunities that will make you murmur, make you complain, make you give up, so that you don't fully manifest the promises of God in your life, so that your life can become an advertisement of the glory of God. So when we live in time, I'm talking about living in the mind. Of course, we're living in time, but I'm talking mentally and spiritually. Then we become an easy target, and the devil easily defeats us. But when we elevate, when we come out of time, when we cooperate with God, Isaiah 55, the Bible says that your thoughts are not my. God says that my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, and His ways are higher than our ways. And paraphrasing. And so he's not saying that my ways and my thoughts are higher than yours, so you're down there and I'm up here. No. It's actually an invitation. That's why in Revelation chapter 4, the Bible says, come up hither. He tells John the Revelator, come up higher, then I will show you. Come up higher, elevate, come up higher, then I'll show you the vision. I'll show you. And so when we are down here in time mentally, it becomes difficult for us to see what God has for us, or even to, stay the course and endure until we see the fulfillment of the promise. And I'm not saying that we should not have goals and we should have dreams and vision. In fact, Habakkuk chapter 4, the Bible says in Habakkuk chapter 4, write the vision. And for it waits an appointed time. That is Habakkuk chapter 2. Write the vision, for it waits for an appointed time. So write the vision, do the work. But what I'm saying is that we should, when we write the vision and limit God to a specific time, that this is the appropriate time that society dictates, then we may fail to really experience the life in abundance that Christ promises. He said that I've come that you may have life and have life to the full. Have it in abundance. I hope I'm making sense. And so when we come out of time, when we understand the purpose of time and understand that the just shall live by faith. The Bible says the just shall live by faith. And understand that also faith exists outside of time, and we cooperate with God, then we elevate spiritually and we become undefeatable to the devil. We become untouchable, undefeatable, because the devil knows that we'll stay the course until we manifest what God has promised us. And so I hope I make sense. I hope I'm making sense. I pray that you just meditate on that. And I'm going to continue in the next video. Have a beautiful week ahead. Much love, Sophie. God bless.